here this afternoon to the homegoing service for Barry Nelson Saunders. I want to thank you for being here today. I want to begin by reading just a piece of the obituary. It says, born to Lawrence Nelson Saunders and his wife Eloise Beck Saunders on December the 11th, 1950 at Lewis Gale Hospital in Roanoke, Commonwealth of Virginia. Died September 23rd, 2021 at 1:10 a.m. at Sussex Campus Hospital in Milford, Delaware of respiratory failure. Preceded in death by his parents and brother-in-law Danny K. Daniel of League City, Texas. As we gather here this afternoon, it's hard to really capture 70 years of living in just a few moments, but I would say the ones you all who knew him best knew him well, and his testimony has already preached his funeral, the testimony of the way he lived his life. But just for the next few moments, I want us to think about, when you look at headstones in a cemetery, you see two dates. You see the date of the birth, you see which for Barry was December the 11th, 1950, and then you see the date of the passing, which was September the 23rd, 2021. Someone captured the essence of those dates by writing a poem called The Dash, because you see, he was born on one day, he passed on one day, but that little dash represents 70 years of living for Barry. The poem goes like this. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved him know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand how other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? How did Barry spend his dash? I'll continue reading the remainder of the obituary. He graduated from William Fleming High School with the class of 1969, attended the University of Virginia in Richmond, Commonwealth of Virginia, where he married Betty Ann D. Saunders in November 1972 and had sons, David N. Saunders and Tyler B. Saunders of Rappling Falls, New York. Barry joined the United States Air Force in March of 1977 as a statistician for 4 years, then cross-trained into personnel, human resources specialist. He was stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, where he received a Bachelor of Arts degree from Louisiana Tech University. Altus Air Force Base, Oklahoma, King Khalid Air Base, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Naval Air Station, Keflavik, Iceland, International Airport, Kunsan Air Base, Korea, and other bases on the peninsula, a total of 6 times throughout his career. And then as I was speaking with Delissa, she shared a couple of others that came to her mind. Bowling Air Force Base, Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He served at the Pentagon. In all, Barry had 13 assignments in 20 years in the United States Air Force. He attained Community College of Air Force Associate degree in Applied Science and Personnel Administration. He met current wife, Delissa Daniel Stanberry, DDD, Staff Sergeant E5, U.S. Air Force, while on his last assignment in Lajes Field, Azores, Portugal. He also attained master's degree in international relations while in Azores before retiring in 1995 as Technical Sergeant E6. The couple married in 1998 in Dover, Delaware, her last station. It will be 23 years. That's amazing. 23 years come November the 14th. 25 years, you said, if you count the time that you dated. He was a member of the American Legion, Dover, Delaware, Master Mason. Excuse me, got my paper mixed up here. Well, I'm sorry, I don't know where it went. But he was a Master Mason. And then we've got the listing of the family, which I believe I may have left laying on my desk at the church. I apologize. Oh, nope. Got it. He was Master Mason and member of Union Lodge number 7, AF and AM, Dover, Delaware. Order of Eastern Star, Victory Chapter number 15, Dover, Delaware. Nur Shrine Temple, Scottish Rite. Survived in death by sister Patricia Ann and her husband Earl Pinkard of Richmond, Virginia. Nieces Julie Ann Pinkard of Richmond, Virginia. Sherry Lynn Saunders and her husband Ray of Hague, Virginia. Sister-in-law Dana Gamble and her husband Kent of Lubbock, Texas. Sister-in-law Carol Preston and her husband Chris of Lubbock, Texas. Sister-in-law Debbie and her husband Robert or Bob. Sister-in-law Irene Daniel of Belton, Texas. Nephew Danny K. Daniel Jr. and wife Marie of Dryden, Michigan. Grandnephews Travis Wayne of Philadelphia, Christopher of Dryden, Michigan, and Allison of Dryden, Michigan. Several great-grandnieces and nephews and many special friends. I would say that Barry lived out his dash well. You know, as you think about the different things listed there, and as you think about how he spent his dash, Barry, Delissa told me he enjoyed hunting and fishing in Virginia in his earlier years. He enjoyed playing poker. He enjoyed watching murder mysteries and sports and sitcoms. He spent his dash traveling to 47 different countries, and he loved to tell stories of his travels. Barry and Delissa would vacation together, as she said recently, on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, Las Vegas, and Monticello in Charlottesville, Virginia. She said he knew the Bible, and he would often share the history and the Jewish history of the Bible, and he really enjoyed talking about the scriptures. He spent his dash as a husband, a father, a brother, an uncle, and a friend. He also spent his dash serving his country, and for that I'm grateful. You see, in our world today, heroes come pretty cheap in what kids look up to and who they look up to. But I'm grateful for the men and women who serve this country. And I thank Barry for his service. Delissa, thank you for your service as well. And so as we think about how Barry spent his dash, we could say he lived his life well. And he loved well. And his love was reciprocated by those he was loved by. At this time, I would like for us to hear the first song selection, Amazing Grace. In my 49 years on this earth and through times like this, I've learned some things. And one of the things I've learned, and this may seem so simple, but I think it's when we're faced with a situation like this and we're in a place like this today, I think we are reminded of the brevity of life. Life is not permanent. You know, we're born, we live, we die. Life is not permanent. In James chapter 4, it says, "Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city and spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow, for you are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away." So we know that life is not permanent. Really, the only thing we can do is make our life count for something. Barry did a lot. I mean, you know, I don't know if it's actually possible for someone to do everything that they want to do, but I would say Barry came close. As many countries as he's been to, as many years as he's been married, the things that he's done, that he's loved to do, the service to our country, I'd say he made his life count for something. And I feel comfortable that in a setting such as this, it's small and quaint, that if anyone has a story that you would like to share about Barry, I mean, I know it's putting you on the spot. If I would have warned you ahead of time, you probably could have thought of a million of them. But putting you on the spot, it may be hard. But is there anyone who'd like to share a story about Barry, maybe that impacted your life, or maybe a funny story or something that you remember about Barry? If not, that's okay. Because like I said, I pretty much didn't give you a warning. So, but this is one thing I do know. Emily Dickinson wrote these words. She said, "Unable are the loved to die, for love is immortality. Life is not permanent." So next thing I know, according to the scriptures, is that death is sure and one day we'll all stand in judgment. In Genesis chapter 3, it says, "By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread until you return to the ground. From it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return." Then in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27, it says, "And inasmuch as it is appointed for men to die once, and after this comes the judgment." And then in Acts chapter 17, it says, "Therefore, having overlooked the times of ignorance, God is now declaring to men that all people everywhere should repent, because he has fixed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness, though through a man whom he has appointed, having furnished proof to all men by raising him from the dead." So what is our hope? If death is sure, and one day we're going to stand before God, because we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, if this book is real, and I believe it is, I've committed my life to preaching it. If this book is real, you know, we can cancel our hair appointments. We can cancel our nail appointments, of which I'd have neither. And we can cancel our doctor's appointment or our dentist's appointment. But there is coming a day, an appointment that we can't cancel and we can't postpone. And that's the day we stand before the Lord. What is our hope? The hope for the Christian is eternal life with Christ. Philippians chapter 1 says, "For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. But if I am to live on in the flesh, this will mean fruitful labor for me, and I do not know which to choose. But I am hard pressed from both directions, having the desire to depart and to be with Christ, for that is very much better." In John chapter 14, Jesus is speaking words to his disciples. You see, for 3.5 years, all the disciples knew was life with Christ. They walked with him. They watched him perform miracles. They ate with him. They listened to him teach. And yet he's coming to them to say, "I'm going away." And his disciples were fearful and didn't know what to expect. Maybe a little bit about like you today. Maybe you're looking to say, what does life look like without Barry? And I think these words today that Jesus said to his disciples some 2,000 years ago are relevant to you today. When Jesus said to his disciples, "Let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. And I go and prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Thomas said, Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? Jesus said, Thomas, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes unto the Father but by me. So the first promise made in John 14 to the Christian is this: we don't have to fear death. When he said, let not your hearts be troubled, he's saying, don't worry about it. Because we're troubled when we don't know what's going to happen when we die. But Jesus has taken the fear out of dying, and he's conquered the grave, and he's conquered death, so there needs to be no fear of our eternal future. The good news this afternoon is this: death had no hold on Christ, nor does it have a hold on his followers. Because Christ conquered death, there should be no fear for the Christian. Billy Graham once said, one day you're going to hear that Billy Graham has died. And he said, don't you believe it for a second. He said, I'll be more alive then than I've ever been before. Well, we're troubled when we view death as an end rather than a beginning. Our earthly bodies die, but our heavenly bodies endure throughout all eternity. Not only can we face death without fear, but according to John 14, the second promise for the believer is this: He prepares a place in heaven for us. Heaven is a prepared place for a prepared people. What has he prepared? Listen to this. This is beautiful. Can you imagine a place like this where it says, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Can you imagine a place where there's no more sorrow and no more crying? Heaven is a place where the hurts and the disappointment of this world have no more sting, where the frustrations of life are replaced with unspeakable joy, where the pains of life are not permitted and the failures of life control us no longer. Heaven is a place where there's no more pain, because you see, heaven doesn't have handicapped parking spaces. Heaven doesn't have hospitals or rehabilitation centers. Heaven doesn't have pharmacies, for there's no medications to be filled or refilled. You see, in heaven we're made perfect. In heaven we're made whole. In heaven we're healed and made complete. Heaven is a place of great beauty. The third promise is that he personally receives us. Jesus there, arms wide open, to welcome his children into that eternal heavenly home and that mansion in the sky. For the child of God, they have experienced a love that we can't even understand. A love that forgives every failure we have in our lives. A love that mends only the hurts that we know. A love that understands only the feelings that we have. It's an unconditional love that completely satisfies the longing of our souls. And then the last promise is there's one way to enter. Thomas, you say you don't know the way to heaven, but Jesus says, I am the way. He didn't say I'm a good way, and he didn't say I'm one of many ways. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. You know, as we get to this point and we stand here and we realize the brevity of life, I just want to remind you of this. No two Christians ever meet for the final time. It's as if they've gone on a long walk down the beach and they're just waiting for us to catch up. Now we'll hear our last song selection, How Great Thou Art. those words and I hear that song played, it reminds me what a great God we serve. And we are thankful to God for the 70 years he gave Barry in this life, for the lives that he touched, for the people that he impacted, and for the difference that he made. I want to thank you for coming today. The interment will be at Cedar Lawn Cemetery. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you.